Hello everyone and welcome to the virtual tour of SoLoDELVE. So SoLoDELVE is a Heroquest emulator that I've built inside Fantasy Grounds. This section of Fantasy Grounds is known as Core RPG, and it doesn't have as much automation as the usual program. So it's quite limited in what it can do, but I've managed to turn it to my advantage and create a randomized Heroquest map maker inside of it, and I'm going to show you how that works today. So the first thing I want to do is go to my images and select my map. So this is the famous Heroquest map that I have remapped using my own dungeon tile style, and you can see here that it already has a grid laid over the top and some furnishings, and some of the characters have already been added. So first I'm going to get rid of all of them. Go to the selection mode here, right click and delete all of those. Alright, so I'm going to start a new quest, and what I need to do is open up my super roll table maker, which I've called MordoorS. Okay, so as you can see, here is a little image, miniature version of the Heroquest map, and it's marked with these different room numbers to help me determine where to place the doors randomly. As you can see, these little pins here each correspond to a roll table. So roll tables are more or less just these. You give it a name, you give it a number of options to choose from, and it will roll one of those options. So here in the chat, this is called the chat section, we can see the chest contains poisonous gas and lose 2 body points. So that's a simple example of how a random roll table can work to randomize the effects, so that when I'm making my maps, it's very similar to a playthrough of Heroquest, except I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how many monsters there's going to be. I don't know what furnishings are going to be in each room. I don't know where the traps are. Basically, it retains the element of surprise and allows me to have an enjoyable solo quest when I can't find anyone else around to play with. So that is why I've built it. So let's have a closer look at MordoorS. So if I zoom in here, you can see that I've got a couple of pins, and I'm not going to do the whole map. I'm just going to do a couple of starting sections. So we go to the quest begins, and we want to find out where in the level we're going to start. So I'm going to use this story template, which basically accesses the roll tables and outputs them as text into the chat box. So it's more of a description than just an outcome, like a number, like 2 or 3 or 4. It actually write a little story for it. So we can generate. And oh, I've done it backwards, so that tells us where to place the stairwell, and in room 11, oh no, that's correct. So we place the stairwell in room 11 against the south wall. So let's find out where room 11 is. Go to our map. Room 11 is here in the 3rd quadrant, so we've got 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th quadrant, and the central, as I call them. So we're going to go to room 11, access our assets, that's a preview of one of the rooms. So as you can see, I have all of these different randomized rooms, and the roll table will select from them and tell me which room goes in which slot on the board. Obviously there's so many I can't remember them, and there'll probably be more as time goes on. But to start with, I want this, and I'm going to hold Shift to rotate it and Control to shrink it or enlarge it. Alright, great. So now we know where our quest is starting. Next thing we need to know is where to put the doors. So we are not going to need all of the doors for this area. So as you can see here, each of these corridor sections where characters might turn and look has its own special layout. So if the character was here and we wanted to find these 6 doors, we could click this roll table and it would tell us. It would also tell us if there was a stone block and how far away from us. So that can be randomized too. But we just want to know how many doors and where they are in our starting room. So we're going to go to this pin, going to generate, and we have an output that says, and you do have to move these around a bit. I usually use a 2-screen setup, but because I'm recording this, it's a bit pinched. So there's 2 rooms in this, 2 doors in this room, one on the southwest wall, which is down here, and one on the south, which is here. So going to go back to my assets, and there's a little bit of back and forth in all of this. Price you pay. But it's still very workable. So I'm going to grab one of these doors. See, it's quite small. I'll zoom in a little here and hold down Shift to rotate it, and we're going to pop that one there, and we have another one in the southwest wall, so we are going to add that there. We will say that's southwest here, and for the purposes of ease of use, we'll just move that stairwell up 1 spot. Okay, so now we will bring in our characters. Now in Fantasy Grounds, it has a great system called the combat tracker, and anytime you want to put something on the board that is a PC or NPC, first you add it to the combat tracker so that any automated aspects of the Fantasy Grounds program can be activated, and then you add the characters onto the board itself. So we're going to add the elf, the dwarf, the wizard, and the barbarian. And as you can see from these sheets, from the combat tracker, we can access their character sheets. So these are very basic character sheets. The ones in the actual fantasy program allow you to do all sorts of advanced coding to automate a whole lot of things, but we don't have that ability. I am not a Fantasy Grounds coder. I am just making do with the best I can. So here I've added some attributes and skills, and I've listed them with numbers so that they appear in that order, like on the cards. And here we have their editable numbers. So that's all good, and then we pretty much ignore the abilities section and we go to the inventory, and we can see here that there are some items here already. This is from the last quest I did, and the elf is carrying 5 of Merrick's gold, and if we click this little button we can see each unit of Merrick's gold is 25. He's also carrying a battle axe, and we can see that each of these items is described. It has a cost down here, so not too bad. It does save us a lot of work and still does the job. Down here we can list the currency that the character is holding, and that's about it, except for a really cool feature called parcels, which is basically a bunch of items stacked together into one box, and then you can just add them to, say, the elf, and immediately he has the 3 spells that he needs or chose at the beginning of the game. So these can be deleted as he goes through them, and if you need to add more, you can add them manually by dragging them across. Maybe you made a mistake and you need to give him back his spell, you can do that. Plus it also makes it easy for the wizard, who has 9 spells, and we don't want to muck around too much. We can just drag these over here like that. There we go. So he's got his 3 sets of spells. Too easy. Okay, now we're just going to walk out into this passage. So one of the things I have here is traps are already assumed. Because I cannot know where they are in advance without being able to avoid them, and therefore metagame, I have to make some concession, and the concession is that anytime I move, there is a trap or a potential for a trap, and if I haven't searched for traps, it's assumed that I've walked into it. So Barbarian is going to stay on his tile actually, and we will get our MordoorS back. And we will find where we are. Where are we? We want to search for traps, and we're in an empty room. So there are no traps in this room. Okay, well that's a good start. So Barbarian has searched, and now he will move. He knows there's no traps in here, so I'm just going to roll normally using these dice. And there's a nice automated roll function there. So he has a 4. That's not very good, but it's good enough to show you how the rest of this works. So Barbarian is going to go here, and he's going to open the door. So I'm going to remove the door, and I'm going to work out what he can see. So furnishings are attached to the room, because putting out the furnishings would be a lot of work and too time consuming, and that's not really what I want. So I'm going to go to room 4. This is a 4x4 room, and I'm going to go to the roll table, and I've got 4x4 room 10. So I'm going to go back to my assets, and down here I'm going to type 4x4. Close this one, and let's see, 7, 8, 9. Oh, there is no 10. Well, that's interesting, unless it's moved it further along. Okay, well, isn't that always the way? You try to show people how it works and it breaks straight away. Alright, well, let's just choose a room at random. I'm going to make it larger, like so. And then I'm going to work out how many doors are there. So, come out. And I don't want to do all of these doors, we just want to work out what room we're in. So we know there's one in the north wall. So, and we know there can't be one here in the west wall. There might be one in the south. So we can roll for the south and the east. And over here we have special roll tables to do that. So there's no doors there. It is an empty room, unless there is a secret door. So normally he would have to wait his next turn to search, but we will just have a look. Let's see, random weapon, searching for a secret door. No secret doors either, so it really is just an empty room. So after that, I'm going to put the door back, but this time it's going to be an open one. That's right, it's a single click that keeps popping up because I'm clicking twice. So there's the open door, and make it a bit larger, and pop it back. And now the barbarian is free to step inside, but there's not much he can do because he's run out of room. So that is essentially how each of these rooms are filled in using MordoorS. We have all of the corridors, we have traps and secret doors for long corridors like this, for single corridors, for double. We also have traps in rooms if you want to check if there's a trap on a particular item, whether certain furnishings are trapped. Up here we have access to the dice. So I've built a roll table. Normally you would roll a dice like this and you get a 4, but with this roll table it will transfer them into skulls, white shields and black shields. Well, that was a very handy roll, lined up perfectly with what I was saying. So that makes it easy for the characters to have their turn and roll their combat and such. And when an NPC, such as a Chaos Warrior, Goblin, Orc, whatever it is, dies, it can simply be removed. Since most of them only have 1 body point, you don't even need to reduce it, you just take them off the board, which is pretty easy to do. And down here I have a combat system, so the other thing that the barbarian would roll for before all is said and done is there an encounter in this room? So let's see. As you can see here, the tables are weighted. There's a 1 to 3 chance there's no encounter, and if they roll a 4, it's going to roll on a different table and choose from one of these 50 encounters. So let's see. Alright, encounter 16. So close this, go to our table. Oops, not that table. Sorry. Go to our NPCs. Oh, no. I'm sorry folks, let me see. How do I get to the encounters? No, it must be here. Encounters. Alright, sorry about that. So there's a lot of there's quite a few tables to remember where everything is. So I'll open up the encounters, and we had number 16. Here's number 16 here, and I'll pop that open. And we can see this is a pretty heavy encounter. You got a Chaos Warrior, a Cyclopean, which for intents and purposes is a Famir, and 2 Orcs. Now I am going to open up the combat tracker. I'm going to delete these 2 gentlemen, and then I'm just going to drag the encounter pin into there, and bang, they're all ready to go. And then I'm just going to lay them out. Now, one of the things I haven't yet worked out is where they are situated in the room when they're laid out, because what I'm trying to avoid is bias. And so therefore, when the monsters attack, say, the wizard over the barbarian, it's because of this thing here, which is my monster AI. So it will attack the closest player, but if that's not possible, it will choose another path. That's just a little thing I've built in, which is completely random. There's no intent to destroy the weakest character or give the wizard a hard time. It's just the way it rolls. So I think that's quite important, especially if you're playing against other people, and especially if you're playing against yourself, because there's no way to simulate the evil wizard without that random chance. Alright, and then as a final stroke, the barbarian, let's say he has an extra move, he'll move in here and he will attack with his broadsword. So roll 3, 1 skull, white shield, 2 skulls. All right, and I've made the tooltip on the Cyclopean come up so that it tells me the movement, the attack, and the defense, so I don't have to keep hunting for it. And his defense is 3, so well, that's the end of you, pal. So we delete him. And that's essentially how it's done. Now, as I move around, more or less imitate what it would be like to play Heroquest, but on my own, and I let the MordoorS work out where all the things are and what rooms are in here, and where traps and doors and such and things are. So essentially, it retains the element of surprise that is one of the most enjoyable things about Heroquest, and it reveals itself to me as I go. I have no idea what's going to happen, and even if the map will make sense. And sometimes it's necessary for me to come in afterwards and add a door or modify some furniture or add a couple of encounters. And then generally I use my imagination to get a feel for how the quest was, how it played, add a storyline, link it to the campaign, and send it off to you. So it's still early days, but this most definitely allows me to play on my own at any time. So thank you very much for watching my video. I hope to stream the third quest creation process live on Twitch within a day or two. It depends on my schedule, and I will let you know in the SoLoDELVE Facebook group. Thank you very much. Cheers.